Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn, and today I'm going to be making two cards that feature the same stamp sets and release, as well as the same color palette. And as you can see, I've pulled out a color cube card, and look, it's orange. So if you watch my videos regularly, you might have caught a collaboration hop I did with some friends of mine where the challenge was to craft with our least favorite color. And I don't necessarily have a color that I dislike, but I do have to say that orange is probably my least used color. I just don't think to use orange outside of maybe pumpkins and perhaps the occasional sunset that I'm trying to ink up. So ever since preparing for that challenge, because I think I crafted with orange once before the actual challenge card that I made, I've been actually giving orange some more thought. It's a very lovely color. Like I mentioned, I don't dislike it. I just don't think about using it. And the color cube, I have to admit, has helped with really using colors that I either don't think about or that I struggle to use, because I am realizing part of the reason for that is because I just don't really know what it goes well with in terms of other colors. So unless it's actually part of like a pattern paper, I don't really have like a go-to color combination. And so it's helped to have these color cube cards to have a color palette. And it also helps a lot that I've been expanding my inks, and so I have more colors now, and so I can actually find colors that are very close to the color palette. So I've started off by just masking off a rectangle on this A2 card. I'm aiming for a very clean and simple card, and I kind of feel like with clean and simple, because it's so minimal, I always feel like I have to be very precise. So I worked kind of hard at really trying to center this up. And I actually used the lines on the printed guide that comes with the waffle flower grip mat to really get the washi tape that I used to mask off the edges nice and straight. I tried to use them to also center my rectangle here, and I think it worked fairly well. I'm really happy with the positioning of all of that. It might be a smidge off, but all in all, I think it's really close to center. It might be that my cardstock or card panel wasn't exactly cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, but later I'm gonna trim it anyhow. Okay, so now that I've ink blended this lovely ombre, I'm gonna stamp right over it. Now, this stamp set is the honeysuckle stamp set, and the flower, it's not really a silhouette stamp. Like often this technique I've seen with silhouette stamps where it's solid. There's no area for you to color in, but I feel like the this stamp still works very well with this look, even though it's not strictly speaking a silhouette stamp. Kind of like how the vase is in this stamp set. See how it's just solid black? Normally with a technique like this, that's what I would see stamped over this, because it's so striking. Like that black against such bright colors, like the ombre from the yellow to in my ink cube, it's actually it's called pumpkin spice. So it's a little bit of an orange, but a little bit deeper. And so black just helps to really make it very striking. And the last thing I'll do is, to finish the panel, is just to stamp a sentiment. It took me a long time to really figure out where to put it. I'm not exactly sure I love it where it is, but I do like the fact that it's breaking outside of the that ink blended rectangle. And that's the whole appeal, I feel, to the look of this, is the fact that the stamping actually extends beyond that rectangle. And so surprisingly, this card is actually usually part of a series, or one of two series that I do on my channel. I have flip videos that I put out, and flat cards like this one tend to be a challenge for me, so that's why I have it as part of that series, just so that I can really exercise that muscle. And here I am doing a flat card as I define it, which is just your card base plus one layer of cardstock. And the other series that I do is my case series, where I do case two ways, clean and simple as well as copy and share. Clean and simple is a struggle for me also. And that's why I incorporate these things into different series on my channel, so that I can get some practice at it. Because if you struggle at something, if something's a challenge for you, or it just doesn't come naturally to you, I find that just doing it more and getting more used to it, it develops, it flexes that muscle. And so I'm really surprised myself that that's how particular card turned out, because I don't think I would have done a card like that maybe 2 years ago. So really, really happy with that one. Now I'm well into my second one, where I've taken the same 3 colors of ink and I've ink blended an entire A2 panel, which I'm actually not going to use in full. And I am not going for anything super, super smooth either. So I'm okay with it being a little bit streaky. I kind of went direct from my ink pad to the paper, and you're gonna get a little bit more streakiness when you do that, as opposed to applying your ink with a blending brush. But I'm okay with that look, because I'm using the this die set, which is the Happy Layering die set from This Calls for Confetti, and I've just cut out different size rectangles, and I'm going to go for a very like a more abstract look, but it's going to be similar to the first card in a couple ways. One, I'm using the same color combination, the exact same 3 colors, blended in more or less the same way, except when I've die cut it, I'm going to piece those back in a different order to how they were blended on the panel. And then second, I'm going to use the same stamp set, the honeysuckle stamp set, and I'm going for that same look, a very monochromatic look, with these stamped out as more or less that silhouette look. The vase is definitely a nice silhouette stamp. I had a little bit of trouble getting such a large solid stamp to stamp out. Part of it is because my VersaFine Onyx Black, it's actually pretty old, but I do have the re-inker, so after re-inking it, I was able to get a very nice solid black here. The honeysuckle stamp set does come with a coordinating die set, and what I love about This Calls for Confetti die sets is, check it out, you don't have to detab anything. It comes already detabbed for you, and I love that. You don't have to snip anything, you don't have to do any work, you can just start using your dies right away. And so I've die cut both of those elements out, and where my first card was relatively flat, this one will have some dimension to it. So I'm going to do just a quick little dry fit here to get the composition that I want, and I'm going to pick out a sentiment. Now, with my sentiment, I was debating a couple things with the sentiment. I was going to either stamp in black VersaFine onto one of the ink blended blocks. And then I was also debating if I did that, which block which block would I stamp onto, because I don't want to have to ink blend again, because I felt like if I was going to ink blend again, I would have to ink blend the whole panel again to get that really nice ombre. And so instead I decided, well, because we have that really solid black of the vase, why not white heat emboss onto some black solid color cardstock and get my sentiment that way. And then plus, because it's a separate element, I can move it around my card, and I can figure out where I want to place it after getting to kind of preview it a little bit. Because for me, I don't know about everybody else, but for me, it's really hard for me to decide on how or where to put something if I can't see it ahead of time. So that was what I was struggling with on the first card, where I couldn't figure out where I wanted to stamp the sentiment. And even though you can move your stamp around, for me, like, it's still a little bit hard to envision what it's going to look like overall when it's stamped in the, in the color of what it's ultimately going to look like. So that's why having heat emboss this onto its own little element and then using the coordinating die to cut it out really helped me, because then I can physically move it around and figure out, where all I want to put everything. So 2 of my blocks I have adhered straight to my card base. This third one is going to get lifted with a little bit of my low profile foam. And when I say low profile, it's about 1 to 1.5 millimeters. That way I can actually, if I wanted, I could even double up on the foam and it would still be relatively flat, at least flat enough to not trigger any extra postage based off of thickness. And one thing I wanted to bring into this even more to create that abstract feel is to splatter some black. So that was just a bit of black acrylic paint that I watered down and then splattered right over everything. I was careful to move all of the other elements aside so that I don't get black splatter on those. Even though they're black and white, I still didn't want any of the, especially the flowers, to get any splatter on them, because that might kind of obstruct how readable the flowers are if there's extra black elements on them. And this vase with the flower will go over, parts of it will go over just the card base, parts of it will go over card base plus 1 layer of cardstock, and parts of it will go over the block of yellow that has foam behind it already. So all I'm trying to do is just to really match everything to make it nice and level. I use some 3D glue gel at the very top where it's a smaller area of the die cut, and that way I can just not have to worry about cutting foam down. I get asked a lot about that glue gel. I always list it in the description of all of my videos now because it has become such a staple in my craft room. And the final touch is just this really sweet and simple thank you sentiment. I love how this card turned out. It looks very different to the first one, even though I'm using all of the same colors, all of the same elements, but it's much more messy and abstract, where this one is much more clean and simple and very minimal. I hope that you've enjoyed my cards today. I'll leave links to everything I used in the description box below. I also encourage you to check out Alice's story. There's a really lovely backstory to that whole collection, that whole release, and it was very touching. So I'll leave a link to that so that you can check that out. Thanks so much, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye!